The wedding was supposed to be fake. Zara Cole stood at the edge of a rooftop in Seoul, 23 floors above the street, watching the city breathe below her like something alive. Her hands weren't shaking. She had promised herself they wouldn't. But her chest was doing something she couldn't name, something between grief and fury and a desperate, swallowed-down terror that she refused to let reach her face. Behind her, Kang Jae-won's voice cut through the wind like a blade. The ceremony is in 4 days. You'll need to learn how to look at me like you mean it. She turned slowly. He was standing near the glass doors, hands in the pockets of a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her mother's entire hospital debt. His face was unreadable, beautiful in the way that certain dangerous things are beautiful, sharp, cold, assembled. I don't need 4 days, she said. I've been performing my whole life. Something moved behind his eyes. Not warmth, not yet, but something. She had come to Seoul 3 weeks ago chasing a lead on her brother Marcus. He was 22, brilliant, and stupid in the way that brilliant young men sometimes are. He had borrowed money from people who don't send letters when they want it back. They send photographs. The last one Zara received showed Marcus in a white room, sitting in a chair, looking at the camera with an expression that destroyed her from the inside out. There was a number at the bottom of the image. A number she had 30 days to produce. She had tried everything. She had called every contact, drained every account, sold the only jewelry her mother had left her. She was still $400,000 short. Then a man named Director Shin had found her in a hotel lobby and slid a card across the table. "Mr. Kang would like to meet you," he'd said. "He believes you can help each other." She had almost laughed. But she looked at the card, and then she thought about Marcus sitting in that white room, and she picked it up. Jae-won's offer was simple on the surface. His enemy, a man named Choi Byung-soo, one of the most protected businessmen in South Korea, had a weakness. He was obsessed with securing a strategic marriage alliance with an American family carrying a specific bloodline. Old money, colonial roots, a particular genealogy that unlocked trust in certain old world circles Choi desperately wanted access to. Zara's bloodline, which made no sense to her, because Zara Cole was from Memphis, Tennessee, and her mother had cleaned hotel rooms until her knees gave out. Your father's side, Jae-won had told her that first night, his voice carrying no emotion, as if he were reading from a document. You don't know him. That's fine. What matters is what his name opens. And what do you get? She had asked. Choi destroyed my family. He manufactured evidence that drove my father to bankruptcy and then to suicide. Everything he has was built on what he stole from us. I've spent 8 years preparing to take it back. I need to get inside his circle. You are the door. She had sat with that for a long time. Then she said, get my brother out first. Before the wedding. Before any of this. He walks free and I see him with my own eyes. That's the deal. Jae-won had looked at her with something that might have been respect, or might have been calculation. Agreed. Marcus was released 4 days later. She cried in a bathroom for 11 minutes. Then she dried her face, packed a single bag, and moved into Kang Jae-won's penthouse to begin the performance of her life. The problem with performing love for a man like Jae-won was that he made it complicated in ways she hadn't expected. He didn't pretend with her behind closed doors. He was honest, brutally. Uncomfortably honest, in a way that almost no one in her life had ever been. When she made a mistake during one of their rehearsal dinners, he didn't soften it. You looked away when you should have held his gaze. Choi's people are watching for hesitation. But when she nailed it, he said so too. Directly. No performance. You were perfect tonight. Completely convincing. She didn't know what to do with a man who told her the truth. Then came the gala. Choi Byung-soo was shorter than she imagined, with a politician's smile and predator's eyes. He took her hand at the introduction and held it 1 second too long. So this is the woman who finally caught Jae-won's attention, he said, looking at her like she was a property he was appraising. Extraordinary. She smiled. She kept her eyes warm. She said, he didn't give me much choice. The room laughed. Choi laughed. Jae-won's hand found the small of her back, and she felt the pressure of it, controlled, deliberate, a signal, and she leaned into him just slightly, the way they had practiced. But here is what they had not practiced. Later that night, standing near the bar while Jae-won spoke quietly with Director Shin across the room, Choi appeared at her elbow. I know who your father is, he said softly, still smiling, still performing for anyone watching. I wonder if you do. Her glass stopped halfway to her lips. I wonder, Choi continued, voice like silk over something rotten, what Jae-won told you about why he really needs you. Whether he mentioned that your father and I were partners. Whether he mentioned what your father did to his family. He paused. Or whether he simply found it more useful to let you believe he was the victim. The room kept moving around her. Music, laughter, crystal and light. She kept her face completely still. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Of course not, Choi said pleasantly. But you will. He walked away. She stood there with the weight of those words pressing into her sternum like a stone. She found Jae-won's eyes across the room and he looked back at her, and for the first time she could not read his expression at all. That night, alone in the penthouse, she sat at the edge of the bed in the dark. She heard his footsteps in the hallway. The pause outside her door. Zara. She didn't answer. He opened the door anyway. He stood in the frame, still dressed, looking at her with something she had never seen on his face before. Something that looked almost like the beginning of regret. You need to tell me who my father is, she said. Her voice was quiet. Quiet was more dangerous than loud, and she knew it, and so did he. The silence lasted long enough that she felt it in her teeth. His name was Raymond Cole, Jae-won said finally. He was my father's business partner. And when Choi came for our family, your father helped him do it. The breath left her body. You knew, she said. Before you ever found me. You knew exactly who I was. Yes. Was I a door, Jae-won? Or was I always a weapon? He didn't answer immediately. And in that space, that terrible, honest silence, she understood that the answer was both. That she had walked into this penthouse thinking she was the one making a calculated choice, and the whole time she had been a piece on a board she couldn't see. She stood up. Her legs were steady. She was proud of that. Get out of my room, she said. He left. She stood at the window for a long time, watching Seoul pulse below her, thinking about her mother who died not knowing, her brother who almost died because of debts rooted in something older and darker than either of them understood, and a man down the hall who had told her every truth except the one that mattered. She thought about Choi's smile, about what was still unfinished. She pressed her hand flat against the cold glass. She was not a door. She was not a weapon. But she was still in Seoul. The contract was still active. And now she had something Jae-won didn't have going into the next move. She knew the whole board.